Joining us today, our first guest from Oakland University. He is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. We're pleased to be joined now by Glenn McIntosh on the Oakland County MegaCast. Glenn, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me today.
We appreciate having you. How are you? How's your team over at Oakland doing?
Well, we're doing well under the circumstances. We're getting ready for the fall semester with a lot of variables, and so we're planning a lot of scenarios based on the different stages that we're in right now, from stage 1 to stage 6, which is the end of the pandemic.
So Glenn, as we're approaching move-in day, we're getting really close to the beginning of the school year. We're getting really close to students moving in, some for the first time at Oakland University. What kind of impact has the COVID-19 pandemic had on planning for student housing at Oakland?
Well, it's had a great impact on our planning for the fall semester. First and foremost, at our university here at Oakland, the health and safety of our campus community is priority. And so when we talk about the residence halls, it's a living and learning environment. Our capacity is 13, well, in some buildings it's 1,300, but our total capacity is 3,500. Right now we're seeing about 2,500 new and returning students. And so that number will probably go up because we're just at the tip of our orientation season with a couple more orientation sessions to go. And so we're doing a lot of planning around creating that safe environment in our residence halls. We've actually reduced our occupancy for the halls. And so we've given students the luxury of indicating whether they want a single room or if they want roommates. Surprisingly, most of our returning students have indicated that they have friends that they want to room with. Some of the things that we're doing is requiring all of our resident students to be tested for the virus prior to moving in to the residence halls and the apartments. And we're planning a testing period in mid-August for those students to get the results back, and then they can move in if they test negative. We're also doing a lot of education awareness campaigns for our students, letting them know our requirements as far as sanitization of the rooms as well as the residence halls themselves. Our custodial staff is doing a lot around cleaning. We've bought different apparatuses such as foggers that will cleanse surfaces very quickly. And so we're doing a lot.
One of the things we were talking about yesterday, how are you going to handle the dining halls for the students?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. We have a food service provider that we've been meeting with over the last 3 months, Chartwells. And one of the things that we're doing is really limiting the number of students in the cafeteria at one time. We're doing social distancing as it relates to the cafeteria style where you select your own foods and serve yourself. That won't happen in the fall semester. And so most things will be prepackaged. We'll also have an option for students to have delivery to their room in cases where they need to be isolated or quarantined. And so we're taking all kinds of precautions to make sure that our food service workers are trained properly to service our campus community, particularly our residence hall students.
Glenn McIntosh with us. He is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. So Glenn, on that note, you mentioned food services in case students need to be quarantined. Earlier on this week, summer students at Michigan State University had a couple of positive tests inside Holmes Hall, and they are now going through a process of quarantining and checking on those students. In the event that there is an outbreak, whether it be in one specific room with a couple of roommates or a couple of rooms in a specific dorm hall, how is Oakland University going to handle a situation or situations this fall where a student or students in one of your residence halls or multiple residence halls do become infected with COVID-19?
Well, if they test positive and they're residence hall students, number one, upon moving in, we're asking students to identify a place that they would convalesce in. And so the question would be, do they have the capacity to return home? Now, in some cases, we understand that won't be possible because the distance home will have international students, outstate students, where returning home won't be an option. And so what we've done is actually created space within our residence halls. And actually, we've taken one of our residence halls offline for isolation and quarantining purposes. And so in the case where the student cannot move home, we would actually isolate them or quarantine them in that residence hall that we have on standby. In that residence hall, we'll make provisions for the students to actually be able to continue classes as well as receive 3 meals a day.
Glenn McIntosh with us. He's the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. So as we're preparing for the school year and as students are getting ready for moving in just a few weeks, what are some of your top pieces of advice for students and their families, especially incoming students in their first year at Oakland University, maybe even their first year of college, to prepare for coming to campus this fall under these specific and very unique circumstances?
Well, I would tell them to prepare to abide by some of the federal and state guidelines as far as, personal hygiene, social distancing, certainly face covering, all those things. And that college experience that they may have looked forward to, we're going to try to provide that as much as possible. The student organizations, we have 350 student organizations, and those student leaders will be trained on how to provide their services in a hybrid situation, some face-to-face, but a lot remote. And so I would convey to parents and students that we have to embrace the whole concept of newness. And so the college experience will alter slightly, but it's for the health and safety of the student as well as others in the campus community. And so I would say it's going to be a great experience in the fall, but it's just going to be different. And so when they move on to campus, understand the expectations that we have of them. Again, abide by them, cooperate with us, because our total intent is to make sure the fall semester goes off without a hitch and that we have this hybrid environment where there is some face-to-face classes as well as remote.
Do the students have the option to go full remote if they wish to, even if it's halfway through the semester?
They do have that option, and so they need to register for classes that are in their remote environment. But if something happens, let's say their health is jeopardized in any way, or they become positive with the virus, we can shift them to an online schedule. So our academic affairs division, led by Dr. Michelle Piskulich, has done a lot of planning with our faculty for these types of situations.
Are the students going to have access to the workout facilities?
That's a good question. As of right now, by executive orders of the governor, places like rec centers and arenas are closed down. If that changes, certainly we'll open up the rec center again, utilizing what we know about social distancing and probably alter our hours of operation. Our intramural sports will alter those, but still, once she takes off the closed order, we will be open for students to use that center.
Glenn McIntosh with us. He is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. So you have a unique facility at Oakland University, a unique operation. It's the first year advising center that was established over at the university. It helps transition high school students to college, and that's a difficult transition, and the added stresses of COVID-19 certainly add to those stresses as well. How important will that team be in helping your new students maneuver this transition in their life as they begin their educational journey at Oakland University?
Well, the staff in the first year advising center will be invaluable. When you think about it, these students who are coming in as freshmen, they had a rough offboarding from high school. Some didn't experience final exams. They didn't have proms. They didn't have the commencement ceremonies. And now we're saying you're going to enter into the college environment and maybe 50% of it will be remote. And so those academic advisors will spend a lot of time with students in the orientation process and beyond. We have a course called COM 101, and it's kind of like an orientation to the university and the services. And so the staff in the first year advising center, which is led by Sarah Webb, they are really geared up now to be really hands-on with students, very intrusive, communicating with students through all type of technological avenues. And so we're going to really make students feel like they're at home and that they can really access us 24/7.
On that note, also, it's still very different for students that are going to be coming back and experiencing another year at Oakland University or continuing their education at Oakland University. So similar to those incoming freshmen that are transitioning from high school to college, what extra provisions are going to be in place to help those that are transitioning to this new normal, so to speak, that we're in at Oakland University as a student coming into this particular fall semester?
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have a number of things to help in the health and safety arena. One of the things that I'm excited about that we put together is a daily health screening. And that will be an online tool where students, upon entering campus every day, they will have to use their phone or some other laptop device and go in and answer 3 questions about their health. If they have a temperature, if they've been exposed to anyone with the virus. And based on their response to those questions, it will trigger a response to our health center, as well as the student. And if they indicate they have no signs of the COVID, they can come on campus. If not, we're going to ask them to not go to class and stay away from campus. Again, it's just a safety measure. But our returning students, again, we're asking them to plug in and really be leaders. And we really require our students in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year to get involved with student organizations. And so they really are role models for our entering students. And so I'm working heavily with our Student Congress, our Residence Hall Association, Student Program Board, as well as our other staff. And so we're going to really pull our upperclassmen in now and ask them to be role models of the kind of behavior that we expect for the fall semester. And so far, they really embraced that idea of actually being an advocate for how we prevent a spread of the virus on our campus.
So Glenn, we are talking about college kids here. They gather in groups. A lot of them do live off campus and the apartments nearby. How concerned are you and the other leaders at Oakland University that this could just spread like wildfire? We've seen the pictures already from across the country. Come on, they're college kids.
But don't say that because I played football in college, and so I wasn't necessarily the most disciplined person when it came to off the field life. But like you said, they're college students. They're in college, they're exploring, they may do some things off campus, as you mentioned. I know Michigan State had an incident at a nightclub that the virus spread through a group of students. But we're going to educate. We have education campaigns that we'll put into effect. Again, use those student organization leaders to really campaign around being safe. And that's what we're hoping for, that they'll be patient. It's just like in a larger society. The idea now is just to be patient. If we can all put on our masks, really invest ourselves in personal hygiene procedures and protocols, we can get through this pandemic, and I think we can get through, in maybe, 6 to 8 weeks if we all just, conform to what are the best practices.
Glenn McIntosh with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. As we are approaching this unique fall semester coming up. Glenn, just a couple more minutes with you. Anything else that's important for us to know or that you'd like your students and families of Oakland University to know as we approach this interesting and treacherous fall semester dealing with COVID?
Well, I would really challenge parents and students and the external community to really look at our COVID-19 website. We have a plan called Grizzlies Protect Grizzlies, and Healthy Together is the theme. And within that plan is laid out that we have 5 steps that we're employing with the idea of creating a healthy and safe environment for our campus community. And so as you move through it, it talks about different protocols that we'll follow, expectations that we'll have, such as the face coverings, the social distancing. All these kind of things will help us, win this challenge that we're up against for the fall semester. And so I'm pretty confident that we're ready. We're scared as heck that there could be some kind of outbreak around us that could find its way on campus, but we're going to do everything possible to control our environment and use all the tools at our disposal to help our students, faculty, and staff to get through this time in our life and our history of the United States. We've never seen anything like this. I'm 57 years old and I've never experienced anything so challenging that hits all of us on a daily basis.
Well, Glenn, thank you very much for being with us today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate
Go Grizzlies.
Yeah, go Grizzlies. We appreciate it. Glenn McIntosh with us, the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University.